Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining September. So this is my top 10 video for September. What games have I played? What did I enjoy? The month of September caught the end of my alphabet in games that I played, and to be honest with you, a lot of those games made this list. I think I picked up around about Q or somewhere in that ballpark. So it's just that last little bit, but a lot of the games that I played made the list. They're good games. So I'm really happy that they've done that. And there's a few others here that I was like, yeah, that's a really good game. That's a really good game. So September was a really good month. My number 10 game for September is Bees. Now, Bees will have only just had its gameplay done in the last few weeks. I've quite enjoyed this. The whole idea is you have a bee and you're moving it from one position to another position to get the pollen to put into your hive, and you need to get certain colors in certain patterns depending on what cards you're going after. And every game's different because the cards you're going after are different. I really enjoyed that. There's enough thinking about it because the thing that catches you with this game is that the bee can move a certain distance depending on which direction it's going. And making those choices, you kind of need to be thinking a turn or two ahead so you don't kind of get yourself into a position where you can't pick up anything. But also you need to know, oh, I'm going after level 4 or things that are 4 spots away. How can I get to all of these things to get different colors that I need? So, because you've got these 3 different cards that are going to get you points, plus another 2 cards that are private. So everyone's going after these 3, but you've also got these guys that you're going after as well. And just there's a really nice balance to thinking which way to go on this. My number 9 game for September is Whistle Mountain. Whistle Mountain lives in the same company as Whistle Stop, which is just here, but they're vastly different games. They're just the kind of same background material, I guess, on it. The whole idea of this is that you're trying to build this structure in a gully that is gradually filling with water, and you can get bonuses and benefits from where you place your machines to get your other benefits and other bonuses throughout your whole growing. And you want to get a whole bunch of points, which is the same as really every other game, but you kind of need to stay above the water line, and the water is going to continue getting higher, which means that this stuff down the bottom disappears and isn't able to be used anymore. I really like it. I quite enjoy my games of Whistle Mountain. So I'll leave that on there. I gameplayed this one a little while ago. Not ages ago, but a little while ago. So have a look back at that gamestation to get a feel for the game. My number 8 game for September is the Quacks of Quidlenberg. Now this is an interesting game. I think this has a lot to do with luck more than anything else, because what you're doing is you're pulling out tokens from a bag, and if you get a certain number of the same specific token, then your potion explodes and you don't get all the benefit of it. But in the same breath, you may want that, because once that explodes, you have the choice of either taking the points of where you've filled up to or taking more tokens. And so it may actually be worthwhile, if there's not a whole bunch of points early in the game, to let the potion explode so you can get the better things into your bag, so that later in the game you've got some really good stuff traveling through that you're able to use. And that's the essence of the game. There's not a whole bunch on this one. I still remember my first game of this. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but on my future games I've really enjoyed it. The whole thing of allowing, or that thought process of allowing your potion to explode so that you can get a higher level to get the different tokens into your bag early game, actually isn't a bad idea. It also allows you to get a little bit behind, which gives you some extra bonuses because of the rat tails that are in the track. The more rat tails there are between you and the lead player, the further forward you get to push your start piece. And so this can all add up to really good benefits. But if you can understand that and come to grapple with the I want to lose in order to win thing within that manipulation, it's a worthwhile game to look at. But if you don't like chance and luck and things like that, then probably give this one a bit of a steer clear. My number 7 game for September is Celtic. Celtic is another one that only got Gamesplainer very recently in the last couple of weeks. I quite appreciate that. I really want to play this one as the 4-player game. I've only played it as 2-player. There's a whole thing of you move a stack of your markers along a path, but when someone moves, if you're starting in the same position as them, you can follow, which means just move some of your stack or all of your stack with them. And so I think with more players, there would be more different opportunity to do that follow maneuver. I think that also the scoring on this one's a little bit funky to understand. Once you do it, you go, oh yeah, I get it. But in order to get that going, I think that with the larger player count game, you'd likely pick up some cards with less than 6. I mean, 6 is kind of the most you'd bother picking up from any of the stacks. In a 2-player game, I found that I was getting 5 or 6 from every one of those decks, whereas in a larger player count game, I may find that I have to get less cards from particular decks, and that would change the score dramatically, because the largest pile you have at the end of the game gets you 1 point per card. Whereas the smallest pile, if you've gone to all 7 spots, the smallest pile will get you 7 points per card. And so the number of cards you can get from each spot, it would vastly change, at least potentially with a 4-player game. So I'd like to try that at the higher player count. My number 6 game for September is Rajas of the Ganges. My wife finally won this game. I'm so proud of her. This is one of those games that we've played quite a few times and she has not won once. Now she has. She has won this game. And the whole idea of it is you're doing stuff on the board that uses dice, and you need to make sure that you've got dice in order to be able to use it, because as soon as you run out of dice, yes, there's a spot you can go to get more dice in, but going there will get you 1 die or 2 dice, and then you're trading a die in for 2 dice of a different color, and it takes quite a substantial amount of stuff to do to build up the dice pool again. But there are things that you can do throughout the board that you get this thing and you get a die. And those things are the ones you want to run after, because as soon as you run out of dice, you can't do any of the good stuff. You almost spend an entire turn just kind of trying to get some extra dice in to be able to do stuff. The whole concept of this game is that you've got money and you've got, I think it's popularity or something like that. And as soon as those tokens cross again at some point, that's the end of the game. Whoever crosses, or whoever, if there's multiple people who cross in the same time, we finish the round, by the way, but if there's multiple people who cross the same time, it's whoever's crossed the furthest that will win the game. And what I found is that previously I've managed to cross over really quickly, or relatively quickly, compared to my wife, whereas this time she did it a couple of turns ahead of me. I was trying out some different aspects to see how they would go, and the way that she won was that she managed to find a way to get a huge amount of income every time she went to an income space. And so she just focused on going to that income space every time, and getting a lot of points every time she did that, which managed to get those two to cross each other really quickly. My number 5 game for September is Underwater Cities. Underwater Cities is a fun game. It's got a lot of thinking. There's not much that happens on your turn, but there's a whole bunch that could happen on your turn. So the essence is you have a few cards in your hand, you play one of the cards out, that tells you which side of the board you can use. If you match up the color of the card you've played and the side of the board that you play on, then you get the benefit of whatever's written on the card, as well as the benefit of the spot. But a lot of the spots, you need to have things to get things. And so early game, I find that all the players go after these 1 or 2 spots that get extra stuff in to build up that resource amount that you've got, so that you can then do the stuff. And I really like that. I just enjoy it. It's a fun kind of exercise in, if I go to this, that's going to get me this, and that will get me these points for doing this. There's a lot of thinking going on with this game. It's relatively weighty in terms of how much stuff you need to think about to get a good run through. but I really appreciate underwater cities. My number 4 game for September is Santa Monica. Santa Monica is one of those games that feels like it's been a little bit overlooked by a heck of a lot of people. It's such a good game. It has hit my top 10 list every time I played it. It's hit the top end of my top 10 list every time I played it. I really enjoy it. The essence of the game is you have a choice of cards that you can get into your tableau, and you're building out 2 rows, so the seaside or the roadside, and you're trying to get different combinations of different icons next to each other or spread around, and you try and move things through. It's such a good game. There's so much going on with it within just a relatively understandable, easy package, but I really, really enjoy it. If you haven't seen Santa Monica, I really suggest have a look for it. My number 3 game for September is Tidal Blades. Now, Tidal Blades is a little bit of a surprise to me because it looks like it is a attacky war type game, but it is actually a Euro. I said this in my game explanation. It's actually a Euro. You place a thing out to get some goods, and by going to this particular part of the board or this particular board, you get to do something else, and then you can attack a card that's in your hand. If you have the right stuff and you're rolling some dice to see if you can attack it properly, you can re-roll, but that's going to cost you. And there's a lot of stuff going on with this game, but the essence of the game is it is a Euro, even though it looks like it may not necessarily be. My number 2 game for September is Vinos. Here we go, another Vita Lasada, right up at the top 1, 2, or 3 of my top 10 lists. I'm just a fan. They're good games. Vinos is a good game. I really appreciate it. The essence of the game is there's only this small area of 9 possible things that you can do, even though it's on a large board. But each of those 9 things push you and pull you, and it doesn't feel like you're doing much, but you're doing a whole bunch of stuff all the way through. I much prefer the 2016 version to the original version. This deluxe version has both in the box, but I find myself playing the 2016 pretty much every time I pull it out. I'll go to the modern version. It just feels more comfortable, and it's a little bit makes more sense is probably the best way to put it. The older version has a bank which you don't want to have to visit, but you do have to visit. It kind of feels like you're losing a turn each time you have to do it. So I quite like the not having to do that element. There's so much going on with this one. It's a really heavy game, but a real brain burner of a thinky game. My number 1 game for September is A Feast for Odin. So anyone who's watched this channel for a while will be aware that Feast for Odin is up there amongst my favorite games. It's a really good game. There is an expansion. I think it's the Norwegian expansion from memory. I have no idea what is and is not expansion anymore because I just play with expansion. I use the expansion board, and whatever comes with that, comes with that. I really like it. It's one of these games where the expansion is kind of a necessity, simply because it cleans up a few of the elements that people were kind of like, oh, that's a little bit unbalanced in the base game. The Norwegian expansion just cleans it up and just helps the game run through relatively easily. I'm such a fan of this game. It really is a good one. And even more importantly, we played this twice in the last month. We played it back to back. Played on a Saturday, played on a Sunday. And my wife was like, I need to play that again. I feel like she's just hitting the point where she actually understands what she's doing rather than just trying to stay alive. She's trying to fill the board. And that's really the game, is trying to fill your board. Do you fill the outside of the board early or the inside of the board? Because the outside of your board has negative points on it, whereas the inside has positive points on it. There's so much going on with this game. I've found that there's islands that you can bring in and try to fill up as well. And I've found that every time I've played it, I've gone after one of those islands a little bit later in the game to fill that up also. And even though I know the game, it felt like, oh, I don't know if I'm actually going to fill it. But I did. And this is really part of the game experience, is stepping in going, I am going to be able to. Rather than, oh, I don't know if I can. And then not because you don't know if you can. I am going to be able to is the answer. And the game just works really, really well. There's so much going on. There's so many different avenues that you could explore to do that it makes it such a good system to play. So if you haven't come across Feast for Odin before, please have a look at it. Have a look at my gameplay and Gamesplaination to get a feel for it and what I'm actually talking about with that. So that was my September. I've had some really good games come through in September. Let's see what October looks like when we get to the end of this month. So I'll leave it there. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.